Hello and welcome. Tuesday noon. Time to have a
Hello.
conversation with Marianne and the Earth.
And it will be an interesting conversation today, Karina, because I have so less brain in this moment to go with the conversation. But hey, I know you will lead this conversation through lovely spaces and places.
We've decided, but both of us have decided last week to have a look at David Attenborough's movie, A Life on Planet Earth. And I see this title almost in a two-way possibility. It talks mostly about the life of David Attenborough
Yeah,
and what he has experienced during his lifetime, doing what he's been doing, being out in nature and reporting. And I also see it of uh, as just what can a life on planet Earth that comes with consciousness, that is lived with consciousness, what can that life change? Because that's where we are today.
yeah. And what you are saying is truly it is about his life and through his eyes and experience how the planet
Mm-hmm.
changed.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's for me also, as we spoke about earlier, is it is still through his eyes and not always from all awarenesses and all knowing and all possibilities.
It is through, yes, it is through his eyes and him being, uh, how old is he? 94?
Yeah,
Uh,
some there.
it's, uh, it's quite a life that and quite an experience, and I was really interested. He during the movie he gave some data on the world population, the carbon that was in the atmosphere, and the remaining wilderness
Yeah,
on the globe. And when he was born in 37, there were 2.3 billion people on the globe. There was 280 parts per million carbon, and there were 66% of the globe was wilderness.
which is a high percentage.
A high percentage. And without going into all the iterations that he gave, the last one was 2020. And we increased from 2.3 to 7.8 billion people on the earth. I mean, that is a drastic increase. We increased from 280 parts per million to 415,
Yeah,
almost doubling. And we decreased from 66% wilderness to 35% wilderness left, which is almost half of what
yeah.
was. And those really are, for me, staggering numbers. And yes, I remember even when I went to school in the 60s, the number of either white or black spaces on the globe, meaning they have not yet been explored, was quite surprisingly high.
Yeah.
And is there any place or space on the globe that hasn't been explored, that hasn't been commercialized?
And that had a great impact. My point of view is, yeah, it is interesting to go and explore. It is interesting to bring out what is truly happening with Earth on Earth. And at the same time, was it always truly with a target to bring more consciousness into the world?
I seriously doubt that. I
That's
mean,
what I'm doubting also.
From my perspective, it's more a how can I utilize that? How can I commercialize that? How can I
Abuse that also.
export things into there so I gain
Yeah,
from a company perspective?
yeah.
And people have been so well trained that you really are the odd duck out, and you may even become ostracized if you do not consume.
Yeah, because consuming is a standard.
Yeah.
Is a standard, whatever way.
I mean, even just little things um, in pens. There used to be that you would buy pen and then you could buy the refill so you could continue to write once it was empty.
Yeah.
Now that is no longer available. That as a sudden disappeared.
And it's coming back. And it's coming back.
Europe is ahead of that. US, I haven't seen any coming back yet, and hopefully it will,
Yeah,
because
there
it
are
is that
few
throwaway.
places. Yeah, there are few stores already and places where you can go with that, but it's not even 1%
It's falling in
worldwide.
between.
Yeah, so it's nearly not existing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but that that consuming aspect, and we lived for so many years separated from nature. And even though, or all those explorations still were, and that's my point of view, my interesting point of view, still were done from separation with nature, with earth, with
Mhm.
bodies, with, so did it really contribute? My point of view is not
Yeah.
really, because if it would have contributed, we wouldn't be at the point we are now.
I mean, let's make a fine distinction. Like David Attenborough was roaming the globe, filming about species, about how they were doing, what was going on for them. And that was educational, that was informative.
Yeah.
And companies did the exploration in order to find spaces and places to make more profit from.
And they always find the money to explore it even more so that they could commercialize it even more,
Yeah.
as though, like David, yeah, there were restrictions to go with the information he had, because yeah, there was less money, and it's not to explore it but to bring it really out into the world, as though commercial things, it's so much, looks like it's so much more ease to get it into the world because it's more supported. The commercial things are more supported in a way.
Yeah, but let me ask you then, as a counter trend thing, exploring the Amazon in order to deforest the Amazon and create cow pasture so McDonald's can have sell
Yeah.
more burgers is one thing. The work that is required to bring a few minutes of film to the world about the animals and the trees and the plants that live in the Amazon forest. A, nothing gets destroyed, and B, they may work for 2 years or 3 years to get those few minutes of film because they are respectful towards the animals too.
Which is far more a contribution for everyone and everything,
Yeah.
due to commercialize things, as you mentioned, to get McDonald's big. it looks like it's more ease, peace, cake when you have the money, when you have
Yeah.
the right person for them on the right spot. So yeah. Hmm.
And
And isn't it also, Karine, that a lot of abuse to nature is hidden due to the way they commercialize everything?
that's just on some level where I wanted to go is this one
Hmm.
thing that he shows, for instance, is how the Amazon is clear cut, and then they put uh, hectares, acres over acres of palm oil plants, basically changing a extremely diverse natural culture to a total monoculture.
Yeah.
And diversity is what nature is supporting, what is also required in order to survive, things, versus a monoculture is dead. If something shifts, that is dead. If an insect gets out, if, how much do we even hear in the US? And I think it's similar in Europe. How much do the monocultures die? Because there's, as a sudden, through the climate changes that we have, beetles that are not dying in the winter anymore and kill the trees. And then we
Yeah.
have the fires, done deal, gone.
And even when you expand on that, how much do they force a monoculture on the habitants worldwide? As though the species,
Yeah.
the human species, they want to get the human species also in a monoculture, whatever the monoculture will be. But like, yeah, everyone, they want us to think the same way, to do the same way, to act the same way, to produce the same way, to
Yep.
produce the same things. Yeah.
And I even am keenly aware of that because I have a background in counseling. And there is a diagnostic manual called the DSM. And if I look at the different iterations between when I studied and got my degree and what is now, the bandwidth of what is considered normal has
Mm.
done this.
Wow. Wow.
It's,
Because that's a really big difference, also.
yeah,
Wow.
but it's supporting that becoming the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. It is. And it is of the diversity. There is a rich life or richness in the several parts of the
Yeah,
world to live and to go and the cultures, but they want to get everything in the same way, in the same. Wow.
yep. Then it becomes controllable, quote unquote.
Or they think, they believe they can control everything.
Yes, the powers to be would like
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we have become more aware of the natural world, the impact of human action on the natural world. And we talk about caring. And not to say that I don't want to make it as a blanket statement, but the percentage of the people who truly care versus the percentage of people who talk about caring. So there's the being caring, doing caring, talking caring. There is a huge difference.
There is. There is. And the being caring are the smallest group, my point
Probably,
of view. My point of view.
probably.
And that's only an interesting point of view. And the talking caring is the biggest group.
Mm-hmm.
But are they truly willing to care for? Because when those talkers, when you have a look into their worlds, how much do they care truly for themselves? How much do they care for their own body? What are they choosing still while they talking about caring? And
Mm-hmm.
that explode often my world as when you go into conversation with those people, how often do they say, yeah, but blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but then blah, 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 as though whatever, we can't change it because it is already this and already that and already that and already this. So talking about, yeah, but if I gonna buy there, then it's enough. Then I'm really caring about
Yeah,
the earth or about the planet, but not even willing to be aware, is that shop where they are going to truly what they say it is? As though the first time I discovered, and that's years ago already, of the biological products, as it is
or,
natural, it's
organic. Yeah,
organic products. Yeah, we in Europe we call it bio products.
yeah.
It's the same. The organic ones, when it says labeled as 100% organic, still, if there is one ingredient in that product made of 100% organic production, but it is only 3% of the total ingredients, then it still can be labeled as organic. And I thought, what the heck is this?
Mm,
So a lot of labeled organic products are not truly organic.
yeah,
And now I'm not speaking about an apple or a pear because, yeah, then the product is an apple or the pear is a pear. But when it's coming to
it's
a
a mixture.
sauce or something, there are more ingredients involved,
Mm-hmm.
then it is. And why the heck, Karina? I never got it. But why the heck the organic products, which is nature, which is natural, are so much expensive than all those other features?
It's actually, uh, I hear you, and I've been there. And what I have learned in the meantime, it is truly more expensive to produce them because of weed control, because of this, that, and the other. It does cost more to produce them.
And it costs more time and more care. And I hear you. And at the same time, what would it take to get more expensive of all the shit they are? It's nothing natural because it costs also. It costs the pesticides, it costs the machines, it costs whatever it costs. It costs also, but it
and
looks like it's cheaper.
and what about the hidden effect that the high cost is actually killing the individual farmers
Yeah,
and I mean killing in the sense that they can no longer keep their farm. They
yeah,
have to sell it to big conglomerates
yeah,
who willingly go with killing the soil, who willingly go with all the chemicals, etc., because it is. But the reality is that GMOs have reduced the harvest that an individual farmer is able to have.
yeah. Yeah, the rules the farmers has to go with, they are insane.
They are absolutely insane. And then, if you want government additional government help, then you have to jump through all those hoops, which basically means
Yeah, that's
commercial
there
farming.
is no support, and they make it more difficult and difficult. So is there object to get rid of
Yeah.
everything of nature? That's the question.
The question is valid because why are we having that big lie that we are separate from nature?
Yeah.
We are nature. We are not separate.
Yeah. Yeah, and still I can perceive when you say it, I can perceive so many reaction on it. What are you talking about?
Mhm.
Separated. I'm here, I'm in a body, I'm living on earth. I can see the ocean, I can see the trees, I can reach out and smell. And so what is that separation?
Yeah. What is that separation? The separation is that we are afraid of nature. Do we have to
And
be afraid of nature? Or can we
uh,
be in communion with nature?
and do we truly know what nature is?
Um, we used to know, let's put it that way, but we
Yeah.
may not necessarily know today anymore what nature truly is.
And I hear you there as I jump back to my childhood, seeing, observing my father when he was sitting, because he was a hard worker, and on Sunday he took time to sit down. When it was good weather, he sat down in the garden and he had his cigar to go with, and then he was really observing and being with everything. I could perceive it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the birds singing and going there and there. And I loved it to
Yeah.
observe it. And at the same time, not acknowledging that that was being in communion with nature at that time, because I wasn't really growing up with that idea.
Yeah.
I'm I didn't learn it, not in school, even not from my parents, because my father was a type he was a really quiet man. He didn't speak a lot. And now I discovered and he's still alive. But when my mom died, we had a lot of conversation about his knowledge. And then I asked him at the time, I asked him, but Dad, why didn't you speak about all those things with us, your children, or with other people? And he said, no, I was really aware that what I could share and had to share, so less people, there were so few people that could hear even what I would speak about. So I loved it more to be in silence and be with it by my own. And I thought, oh my God, how many people did that do? And he's of the age of David. He has also now 94 years. So he's from the same
Mm-hmm.
year. So, yeah, also he himself has seen the changes into the world, but being with it in another way. Even if it didn't went out in nature and didn't explore it, etc. Still, he was really often being in communion with the earth.
And if I look at my parents, we were spend a lot of time in nature, but that time in nature always had an agenda to get up to the
Mm.
mountaintop, to have a good view, and then we had to go home.
Oh, rushing through nature.
There was not
Wow.
much being present with nature. And there was this, I realized way later in life how much separation there was. One did that because one did that.
Yeah.
One went on to the Sunday walk through the park.
And isn't
But
that
it's not
catching in? Yeah,
from,
and isn't that matching, Karina, with what you earlier said about talking about care?
yeah,
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 absolutely. And
yeah.
the match, another way of matching is this is I've been horrified last year and this year about the reports of destruction that are happening at trailheads and on trails because people want to get out, which I can absolutely understand with the lockdowns, but they're taking shortcuts, they're cutting corners, they are destroying the surface of the area in the area. And then we have erosion and all kinds of stuff. That to me is not caring for the earth. There is a trail, and if I care for the earth, for me, from my point of view, I stay on that trail. I don't cut across. If there is no trail, that's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah, but you see it in several aspects, as in alpinism or whatever it is, in going out in nature, doing things in nature from the idea, because they speak about it, that they love nature, that they care for nature, but then all the trash they leave behind, or as you mentioned, go and create
New trails.
new trails or whatever. So it's not really truly caring, but how much of those things has to see what I could achieve, see what I'm capable of, as though when I can climb that rock, not going with the trail that there is made for that, but I can do it from the wilderness part, and I survived this or that. Does that truly has to see with nature and being interested in nature?
Different people have different points of view.
Yeah, and that's all fine. That's really great that we all have different point of views, of course.
Yeah. But to get back to the movie, what I really, what really hit me is this is the growth in population, how we have overrun the world and as a result destroy nature, as a result destroy the biodiversity. And if we want to quote unquote save the earth, then one thing that we need to do is allow for more biodiversity again.
Yeah, it's reorganization.
It's really stopping the clear cutting, stopping the monocultures
Yeah,
is something that David Attenborough really is a strong proponent. And we have options. I mean, we know how to build buildings that have nature incorporated, where there is trees and small gardens off of any balcony. And the benefit is that the trees are actually protecting the building from the heat.
yeah.
It keeps the building cooler, which means we have less need for electricity, which means, you know,
And isn't it also, Karina, that a lot of people want nature in their garden, as though, yeah, we have to buy bigger lands, so we can have our own nature part in the garden, but which is supporting that monoculture, because it's not really of pairing. How would it be if we even allow ourselves to live smaller and go with nature in general? You know what I want to say is, how much is it now that so many people want their private part of nature, which isn't nature. So it's not really sharing nature.
I mean, you can make an argument, and in that sense, I see a difference between European and American culture, that you have your own private backyard, versus in Europe, it's more have community yards. But independently of it being private, it being public, how much are we willing to really have animals and biodiversity in those areas?
That because the private garden is really European, more and more and more. And it's not recycling the lands with houses. No, they are not interested to recuperate the buildings and the lands. No, they are gonna buy new ones and create new ones, and there is a lot less nature in Europe also, a lot less. And Europe is a small part of the world, as though
It
to
is,
speak.
and it is also, on the other hand, relatively to the US, way more percentage of population per
Yeah,
square meter, or
yeah, yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
But it's
Do you know an image that catches me now is, if I'm correct, from that film, that Hiroshima, where everyone needed to go and nature was destroyed and everything was in danger, that he catched also a few, that he went there where the explosion was of the Hiroshima, and everything was green and growing back and vital.
you're referring to Chernobyl, not
Oh,
Hiroshima.
I'm mixing up things.
Yeah,
Okay.
the nuclear accident in Chernobyl, where they
Yeah.
had to evacuate people because there was too much radiation,
Okay. It's me.
and nature reclaimed
Yeah.
Chernobyl, basically
Yeah.
the city.
Yeah. I thought it was Hiroshima, but yes. Okay. Fine. But that was David that showed those
Yeah,
pictures. Yeah.
yeah.
So also there, Karina, there is so much, or a lot of people believe that they can control nature, and they harm it and they abuse it. And still, nature, is it truly possible to destroy nature?
It's possible to change nature,
Yeah,
but to destroy, no. And to make nature non-inhabitable for humans
yeah, that,
is absolutely possible.
yeah, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
Also, that was the energy I catched.
I mean,
Also, yeah,
unless humanity desires to become part of this current extinction event, we do have to change. And we do have to change seriously and quickly.
and changing with nature, not from our
Not
heads,
from head.
not from
No.
conclusion, not from definitions, but really go and be with nature present and asking questions what is required.
Ask nature what nature requires from us.
Yeah.
And there is one thing that where I, to some extent, agree with David Attenborough is that we need to stop the population explosion. And his suggestion of how to go about it is to have a higher standard of living in the poorer countries.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned also a bit with that reorganization is the standard, the basic standard for everyone, wherever it is on world. Yeah.
Needs to go up. And, you know, it's not even, it was so funny for me that after watching the movie with David Attenborough again, the next day in the news, I came across, oh, the US is for the first time dropping in population, and we actually economically need at least 2.1 children in order to keep it, the system going. What if we only have 1.5 children or 1.2 children statistically? And David Attenborough actually used Japan as an example where the standard of living has really gone up for the population across the country, and the numbers of children has drastically gone down.
Yeah. But you mentioned it also, it's from economics standards or point of view, they are looking at it. And you call it the systems to maintain the system, but truly are that the structures and is nature the system that they dismiss?
What can we learn? I mean, the question that I have, and I haven't done any research on that, but we all have seen images of the huge herds in the Serengeti in Africa. What does nature do? How much do how much do animals drop their reproduction rate when there is a drought?
Yeah.
You know, and how much do animals adapt, in a sense, to stay viable? And if I look at what we do here, it gets stressful, we'll have more kids. We'll move into the desert. We'll divert the water from somewhere. And even if we have to recycle water that has been used before in order to have drinking water.
And there you mentioned
all those things. So what can we do, and are we willing to do the things that are necessary?
Yeah.
Are we willing to get out of talking into being and doing?
Because you mentioned there's something about the population also and the children as adapting to nature, because the fertility's problems are rocking. There are so many problems to become pregnant in a matter. Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
But what if our bodies from nature adapting to what was going on, and then we force it into something different, not getting that nature is calling us also through our bodies, which nature does, but we didn't get it earlier that was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it is the last question you asked also, are we truly willing? Are we truly willing to be with nature, to be in communion with nature, to start with our bodies, also to start in communion with our bodies, with nature, asking questions, Karina. Here we are again, asking questions, asking
And
questions.
are we willing to become part of nature? Or
Yeah.
are we choosing to continue to separate from nature?
Which, and that's also my point of view, which will not work. It isn't working any longer. The separation isn't working any longer. It is urging us, Earth is really urging us to go and be different.
To go and be different. And, people are complaining about and bemoaning the climate change and all of that. And how much is it the Earth's way to say, hey guys, this is going to happen more and more unless you change your ways?
That, Karina, that, yeah, that is so light for me also. When we human beings are willing to be different with ourselves, with Earth, there will appear another living Earth for us. There will
Yeah.
appear. Yeah, that's my
And,
point of view.
you know, it's our choice. Where are we going?
It
It's
is.
and with our choice, I mean humanity's choice. There will be people who choose to be in communion with the earth, and there's going to be people who choose not to be in communion with the earth. The only question is, what's the bigger percentage of people?
Yeah. And what also, Karina, that it isn't relevant what another one chooses. If we choose for ourselves towards what will create
More.
greater, what
Mhm.
will create more, and pulling in there those who are sitting on the fence, perhaps, what would that create?
Yeah.
Yeah, what would
Yeah.
that create? Great. And again, it's so clearly that it's not correct what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that we know about nature. It is not correct because we do know, but isn't there a lot more to acknowledge what we know about nature?
What I would like to say is, for you and me and people like you and me, it is important to acknowledge.
Yeah.
For other people, it is important to allow the knowledge to come through. Because just because they choose not to have it doesn't mean that it's not there. If we
Yeah.
refuse to become aware, if we refuse the knowledge, what does that create? And are we willing to stop refusing the knowledge?
And that's really what I became clear for myself. It was like putting on the light. It was, but what the heck, how insane is that to continue to refuse and avoid also what we know, what we are being already. We are it, we be it, but we don't want to acknowledge it. We don't, yeah, everything there. That's the true insanity for me.
Yeah.
So what can we choose there different also? Choosing
And
different, be different, act different,
and
ask
as
different.
Einstein said, the sure sign of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and
Yeah,
expecting a different outcome.
yeah.
Or
And
my favorite quote is, you cannot solve a problem from the
with
same level of consciousness that created it. So
so
something
true.
has to give, something has to change. And who and when and where and how, that needs to be seen.
And it is changed. We
It
did
will
change.
change. It will change. It is changing. It will continue to change.
Yeah,
And, on some level, those people that are choosing not, how shall I say, not to go with the program that the earth has, will just have to deal with the consequences.
yeah, yeah. And it's okay also being
Yeah,
in allowance of
there
whatever.
is nothing wrong. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Karina. I'm
Until next
curious
time.
what will be the next week, which film we will go through then. Perhaps,
Yeah,
yeah,
I did. I, yeah, I'm not even sure I posted that are talking about David Attenborough's film, but uh,
it doesn't matter.
now people know.
Now people know. And in the end, it's conversations with the earth. And it doesn't matter through what,
The,
from
the
where we
film
are
is
going with
just
it.
an entry point
That.
to, yeah. Okay. See you
Thank
next
you.
week.
See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.